The Uber pulled away from the curb, leaving me standing there with my briefcase in one hand and my keys in the other. I was running on 3 hours of sleep and a lukewarm latte from the office. The brownstone was dark except for a sliver of light coming from the parlor floor window. Typical Sean. He'd be on the couch, watching some bullshit sports recap, completely unaware that I'd just closed a $40 million merger for his firm's biggest competitor. I didn't expect to thank you, but I sure as hell didn't expect this. I slid the key into the deadbolt. It didn't catch. I wiggled it. Nothing. It was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. My eyebrows knitted together. I tried the doorknob, locked. We never locked the deadbolt unless we were out of town. San? I called out, rapping my knuckles against the heavy wood. Open up. I heard shuffling inside. Then, the door cracked open, but the brass chain lock held it fast. Sean's face appeared in the gap, looking thoroughly annoyed, like I was a Jehovah's Witness interrupting his Sunday morning. Elena. Jesus. What time is it? He mumbled, rubbing his eyes. It's 11:30, I said, keeping my voice level. Why is the chain on? And why doesn't my key work? He sighed, a long-suffering sound that grated on my last nerve. You're being dramatic. Look, Brittany's here. She's upset, all right? I don't need you starting shit tonight. I felt a cold spot form in the pit of my stomach, but my face stayed neutral. Brittany, the assistant from his office who spent too much time posting thirst traps on Instagram. Brittany, your side piece? You changed my locks? From somewhere deeper in the house, I heard a whiny voice float toward the door. Sean, who is it? Tell her to leave. This is so awkward. Sean leaned his forehead against the door, closing his eyes for a second. When he opened them, he had the audacity to look put upon. Look, Elena, just go to that boutique hotel on 7th Avenue. I'll call you tomorrow when you've calmed down. We really need to talk about boundaries. Boundaries. He wanted to talk about boundaries. I almost laughed. Instead, I tilted my head, peering past him through the crack. He was standing close enough that I could see the reflection in the hallway mirror behind him. On the entry table sat my MacBook, the one I'd left at the office this morning because my bag was too heavy. The one with all the discovery documents for our impending divorce, which he didn't know I'd already filed. And he definitely didn't know about the tiny security camera app I'd rigged on the smart TV in the living room, angled perfectly to catch the foyer. I swallowed the rage that wanted to claw its way out of my throat. Getting arrested for disorderly conduct wouldn't help me win a settlement. I needed evidence, not a mugshot. I smiled. It was a cold, thin-lipped smile that didn't reach my eyes. Fine. Enjoy your night. San. I turned and walked away, my heels clicking on the cobblestones. I didn't look back. I got to the corner of 5th and Garfield and stopped. I pulled out my phone, opened the hidden app, and watched the live feed. On the screen, Sean shut the door and re-engaged the new deadbolt. He turned around, and there was Brittany Voss, wrapped in my cream-colored silk robe, the one my mother bought me from Saks. She was twirling a strand of her overly highlighted hair. Is she gone? Brittany asked, reaching for a glass of what looked like cheap Pinot Grigio on the console table. Yeah, Sean said, running a hand through his hair. He looked tired. She's probably going to a hotel. Fucking drama queen. Brittany took a sip, smacking her lips. She looked pissed. Are you sure we shouldn't have just told her? Like, properly? Don't tell me how to handle my wife. Sean snapped. He grabbed the bottle and poured himself a generous tumbler of whiskey. She's got a trust fund the size of a small nation. She'll get over it. Besides, once the papers are signed, she won't care who sleeps where. I kept recording. Every word, every movement. Brittany wandered into the living room, plopping down on the sofa and propping her feet up on the coffee table, on top of a stack of my legal journals. So, did you move the money yet? She asked, scrolling through her phone. My Venmo's been dry since Tuesday. Sean glanced toward the foyer, paranoid, then lowered his voice. I adjusted the audio gain on the app. I'm doing it now. From the office IP. If I do it from here, Elena's forensic accountant will trace it back in 5 seconds. But if it looks like a routine transfer from the firm to cover development costs, it buys me time. You better hope it works. Brittany muttered. I'm not going down for your tax evasion. San, shut up about that. He hissed. Just keep an eye out for the mail tomorrow. The new credit cards should arrive. In your name, but linked to her account. By the time she notices, we'll be in Montauk. I felt a detached sense of satisfaction. He thought he was being slick. He thought I was off crying into a pillow at the Union Street Inn. Little did he know, I was sitting on a bus bench outside a Duane Reade, watching him hang himself. My phone buzzed with a banking alert. Fraudulent activity suspected. I clicked it. 2 large withdrawals, totaling $50. 000, initiated from an IP address registered to O'Connor Realty. Just like he said. I stood up. The diner across the street was still open. I walked in, ordered a black coffee from a bored-looking waiter named Mike, and slid into a vinyl booth. I watched the feed for another 20 minutes. Brittany started doing shots. Sean was on the phone, arguing with someone named Tony about deliverables. It sounded like a shakedown, not a development deal. I finished my coffee. The warmth did nothing to thaw the ice in my veins. This wasn't just a midlife crisis or a stupid affair. This was a hostile takeover of my life. He wanted the house, the money, and he wanted me gone without a fight. I pulled up the non-emergency line for the 78th precinct. I didn't call about a domestic dispute. That's how women get killed or ignored. I called about a potential break-in at my residence. 78th precinct. Officer Ramirez speaking. Hi. Yes. My name is Elena Martinez. I own the brownstone at 412 5th Street. I'm currently out of state, but my neighbor just texted me. They saw someone forcing the front lock, and I have a security feed showing unfamiliar electronic equipment near the south-facing window. It looks like they're tampering with the alarm system. It was a lie. The equipment was just Sean's new iPad. But unfamiliar electronic equipment sounded a lot more like a police matter than my husband changed the locks. Now, do you have access to this property? I own it outright. My name is on the deed. I'm heading back now, but I'm 30 minutes out. Can you please send a car to check it out? I'm concerned for the safety of my belongings. Stay on the line. Ma'am, we'll dispatch a unit. I hung up. I waited 5 minutes. Then sent a quick text to Sean. Hope you enjoyed the wine. The police are on their way to check the locks. Wonder what they'll say when they see you inside. I watched the screen. Sean's phone buzzed on the entry table. He picked it up, read it, and his face went white. He started yelling at Brittany, who looked confused and terrified. Get up, get up. The cops are coming. She ratted us out. Who? Elena. Why would she call the cops? Because she's a psycho. He screamed, frantically looking for his shoes. Hide that bottle. And get that robe off. If they see you in her stuff, we're screwed. I took one last sip of my coffee, left a 20 on the table, and walked back out into the cool night air. I got into a cab idling by the curb. 78th precinct. I told the driver. As we pulled away, I looked back at the brownstone. A few minutes later, 2 squad cars rolled up, lights flashing but sirens off. I watched from the cab as Sean opened the door, his face a mask of fake confusion. The officers stepped inside. I leaned back against the worn leather seat, finally allowing myself a small, grim smile. He wanted to play king in my castle? Fine. But when the cops knocked, he was just a trespasser holding a stolen drink. Let's see how well his boundaries held up now. The cabbie was some old Russian guy who smelled like Marlboros and spearmint gum. He kept glancing at me in the rear view. You okay, miss? You look. How you say? Focused? I'm fine. Yuri, just keep driving, I said, not looking up from my phone. On the screen, The live feed from my living room showed two uniforms, a tall black guy with sergeant stripes and a younger Hispanic kid with a nervous twitch standing in my foyer. Sean was doing his best used car salesman impression. "Officers, thanks for coming by. Probably just some kids messing with the latch," Sean was saying, trying to block their view into the house. But the kid cop leaned sideways and spotted Brittany. She was still in my robe, clutching a half-empty bottle of Pinot like it was a security blanket. "Sir, who's that?" the sergeant asked, his hand resting on his belt. Not necessarily on his gun, but close enough to mean business. Sean didn't even turn around. "That's Brittany. She's a guest." Brittany, bless her tiny, vodka-soaked brain, decided to pipe up. "Actually, San, I've been staying here for like 3 weeks now. My mail comes here. I am basically Brittany." "Shut the fuck up," Sean snapped, spinning around to glare at her. The look on his face was pure venom. He turned back to the cops, forcing a laugh. "She's exaggerating. She's just crashing here while she looks for a place. My wife and I are going through a thing." I zoomed in on the sergeant's face. His name tag read Rourke. He had that look, the one I saw on junior associates right before they realized the witness was lying. He wasn't buying it. "Mr. O'Connor, we got a call about a potential break-in and some suspicious electronics near the windows," Rourke said, his voice flat. "You mind if we take a look around? Make sure everything's kosher? With all due respect, officer, this is private property," Sean said, puffing out his chest. "My wife is being, let's call it overly creative because she's unhappy with our marriage. You don't have a warrant." Rourke sighed. "We don't need a warrant for a wellness check, Mr. O'Connor. And we don't need one when we see signs of a potential crime in plain view." He nodded toward Brittany. "Now, is that your robe?" Brittany looked down at the silk, then at Sean. "No, it's Elena's. But Sean said it was fine, goddammit." "Brittany, sans shouted. I decided it was time to make my entrance. I told Yuri to pull over across the street, about 50 feet down from the house. I rolled down the window. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just held up my phone so the screen faced the open doorway. On it, the live feed was still running, but I'd switched to the screen mirroring option. I panned the camera slowly, making sure Rourke saw that I was watching them watch me. Rourke's eyes narrowed. He pointed a thick finger at me. "You the caller?" "Detective Rourke, I presume?" I called out, my voice cutting through the tension. "Elena Martinez. That's my house. My name is on the deed. And that man," I pointed at Sean, "changed the locks today without my knowledge or consent. I have video evidence of him doing it this afternoon." Sean's face went from red to a sickly shade of gray. "Elena, you bitch. You set me up." Rourke held up a hand. "All right, simmer down. Mr. O'Connor, step outside. Please, I'm not going anywhere," Sean said, planting his feet. "She's trying to frame me for something. Ask her about the money. She's the one moving funds." Rourke looked at me. I shrugged, playing the part of the exasperated victim perfectly. "I'm a corporate lawyer. Detective. My finances are audited quarterly. San, on the other hand, has been dipping into our joint accounts to fund his lifestyle choices." I gestured to Brittany, who was now trying to slink behind a potted plant. Rourke stepped closer to Sean. "Sir, I'm going to ask you again. Step out of the residence. Make me." Sean hissed. The young cop beside Rourke tensed. Rourke just looked tired. He reached out, grabbed Sean by the elbow, and guided him not roughly, but firmly out onto the stoop. "You're impeding an investigation, Mr. O'Connor. That's obstruction. Now, you want to talk about money? Let's talk about the $50,000 that left your joint account an hour ago. The call we got said something about electronic equipment. Care to explain the iPad on the kitchen counter downloading offshore banking apps? San está mered. That's for work. It's a secure transaction for a development in Queens. Funny, I interjected, leaning further out of the cab window, because the IP address pinged from inside this house, and I haven't been home since this morning. So either you're running your secure real estate empire from my living room, or you're laundering money through our joint checking. Brittany suddenly gasped. She pushed past Sean, nearly tripping over her own feet. Wait, wait, wait. That $50. 000. San, you said that was for the new lease on the condo. You said you were moving it to my account, so Elena wouldn't freeze it. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crickets seemed to shut up. Rourke slowly turned his head to look at Brittany. Then he looked at Sean. Sean looked like he wanted to melt into the brownstone's brickwork. Is that true, Mr. O'Connor? Rourke asked, his voice dangerously soft. Did you transfer $50, 000 of marital funds into Ms. Voss, Brittany Voss? She supplied helpfully, then clapped a hand over her mouth. Ms. Voss's account without your wife's consent? Rourke finished. Sean found his voice, though it was high-pitched and reedy. It's not what it looks like. Brittany, you idiot. Shut your mouth. Rourke pulled out his cuffs. Not the taser, not the gun, just the cuffs. Mr. O'Connor, I'm placing you under arrest for grand larceny in the 4th degree and unlawful evasion of a spouse from a shared residence. You have the right to remain silent, which, judging by your girlfriend's commentary, you should have exercised about 10 minutes ago. You can't do this. Sean protested as Rourke spun him around and clicked the cuffs on. Elena, call him off. I'll sue this precinct. I'll sue you. I'll take the house. I'll save it for the judge. San, I said. I stepped out of the cab, my heels clicking on the pavement. I walked up to him, getting right in his face. And for the record, the cameras caught you changing the locks. They caught you drinking my whiskey. And they caught you admitting to stealing my money. The only thing you're taking tonight is a perp walk. As Rourke led him toward the patrol car, Brittany stood frozen on the stoop. She looked at me, then at the empty house, then back at me. What happens to me? I looked her up and down. She was shaking. Go inside. Brittany, pack your shit. If I see you in my robe again, I'll add theft to Sean's growing list of charges. And if you're very, very lucky, Detective Rourke here might have a few questions for you about that Venmo trail. But right now, I just want you gone. She nodded frantically and bolted back inside. Rourke opened the back door of the squad car for Sean. Before he pushed him in, Sean twisted around, his eyes wild. This isn't over. Elena, I'll be out on bail by morning. And when I am, you're going to regret this. I know things. About the safe deposit box. About the cash you're hiding. Rourke paused, his hand on Sean's head, guiding him into the seat. He looked over at me, one eyebrow raised. Safe deposit box? I kept my expression blank. He's bluffing. Detective. Standard divorce tactic. Trying to create smoke where there's no fire. But Rourke didn't look convinced. He shut the door, sealing Sean in the back. He walked over to me, pulling out a small notepad. Ms. Martinez, if there's anything else, anything at all you think we should know, now's the time. Arson, fraud, hidden assets. It's easier to sort out before the D gets involved. I met his gaze. There's nothing. Detective, just a greedy husband and a mistress who thought my life was a dress-up game. He nodded slowly, jotting something down. All right. We'll process him downtown. You might want to get those locks changed again. Professionally this time. He handed me a card. Call me if he makes bail before the arraignment. Or if you remember where that safe deposit box is. I took the card. Will do. Detective. I watched them drive away, the red taillights disappearing into the Brooklyn night. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence. Then I turned and walked back into my house. It smelled like Sean's cheap cologne and Brittany's sugary perfume. I hated it. I went straight to the kitchen. My laptop was still there, exactly where I'd seen it on the camera. I opened it, plugged in the external hard drive, and started backing up every frame of the footage from the last 4 hours. As I waited for the progress bar to crawl across the screen, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, probably a burner. "You think you won? I'll burn this whole block down before I let you take it." I stared at the message. Then I looked at the blueprints Sean had left on the dining table. Blueprints for a renovation that didn't involve me. And then I looked at the calendar on the wall. Next Tuesday was circled in red. No note, just a circle. I saved the text message to the cloud. Then I forwarded it to Detective Rourke with a simple caption. "Thought you'd want to see this." The ice in my veins started to feel less like ice and more like steel. Sean wanted a war. He'd just declared it, and I'd spent my entire career learning how to win them. I didn't sleep. Sleep is for people who don't have a husband trying to burn down their life. I spent the night at my friend Sarah's place in Tribeca, a favor she owed me after I got her brother off a DUI last year. By 6 a.m., I was back in a cab heading toward the 78th precinct. My inbox was already a war zone. 47 missed calls from Sean, 20 from his sleazeball lawyer, Barry something, and one new email from my own legal team, motion for exclusive occupancy and order of protection filed. Hearing at 9:30, I walked into the precinct. The smell of burnt coffee and old linoleum hit me. Rourke was at his desk, looking like he hadn't moved since he booked Sean. He had a styrofoam cup in one hand and a stack of paperwork in the other. "Martinez," he grunted, not looking up. "You're up early. So are you. Detective, how's our boy?" Rourke finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot but sharp. "Barry Lipschitz, yeah. That's his real name, is already here. Posting bail. Seems Mr. O'Connor's development funds are liquid enough to cover a 10 grand bond." He tossed a manila folder onto the desk, and we pulled the phone records. "That text he sent you? Sent from a burner. But it pinged a tower near your house an hour after we picked him up. Sloppy." I leaned against the desk. "He's panicking. Panicked men make mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, did you run the Venmo logs I sent?" Rourke nodded toward a younger detective typing furiously at a computer. "We're seeing a pattern. Your girl Brittany Voss has been cashing out every 2 days for the last 3 months. Small amounts, under the radar, but it adds up to about 30 grand. All linked to Sean's primary account before he started moving chunks to offshore shells." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "So, she's not just a mistress. She's an accomplice. Unwitting, maybe. But still, she lawyered up about an hour ago," Rourke said, taking a sip of his coffee. "It looked like motor oil. Public defender. She's singing like a canary. Trying to cut a deal. Says Sean told her the money was gifts to avoid marital asset seizure. Translation: he was using her as a mule." I said, "Classic Sean. Use someone else to carry the risk while he walks away clean." I paused. "What about the safe deposit box? He mentioned it last night." Rourke's expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. He clammed up after that. "Lawyered up faster than you can say Fifth Amendment. But we got a warrant based on the arson threat and the financial irregularities. We're hitting his office and the house again this morning. If there's a key, we'll find it." My phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize, but I knew the tone. Whiny, desperate. "Brittany, Elena Pelisse. I know I fucked up. Barry says I'm gonna get charged. I have stuff. Emails. Receipts. Stuff Sean didn't want you to see. The safe deposit box key isn't in his name. It's in mine. Meet me at the diner on 7th. Alone. Before they take me back to holding." I showed the screen to Rourke. "Looks like your canary found a bigger cage." Rourke read it, then looked at me. "You go, Ego. That's non-negotiable. If she's got the key, it's evidence. If she's setting you up, it's a crime scene." I nodded. "Deal. Let's go." The diner was the same one I'd been in last night. Mike the waiter gave me a nod as we slid into a corner booth. Brittany was already there, looking like hell. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a nest, and she was nursing a Coke with shaky hands. She jumped when she saw Rourke. "Him," she squeaked, pointing at the detective. "He stays," I said, sliding in across from her. "This is Detective Rourke. He's investigating Sean's little accounting errors. You want to talk? Talk in front of him, or don't talk at all, and we'll let Barry explain to the judge why you're an accessory to grand larceny." Brittany's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know. He said it was just, like, tax optimization. He said Elena was crazy and would take everything, save that I'm just a dumb blonde act." "Brittany," I said, my voice cold, "you're 26. You have a business degree from Rutgers. You know what a paper trail is. Now, where's the key?" She fumbled in her purse, a garish pink Louis Vuitton knockoff, and pulled out a small brass key attached to a tiny silver dog tag. She slid it across the table. Rourke picked it up, examining it. "First National, Park Slope Branch, Box 442. Any emails?" I prompted. She unlocked her phone with a trembling thumb and turned the screen toward me. It was a thread between her and Sean. The subject line burned notice. "Sean, once Elena is out of the picture, the whole brownstone is ours. I have a plan to make her sign over the deed. Don't ask questions. Just keep the cash flowing through your accounts. If she fights, we escalate." "Brittany, what does escalate mean?" "Sean, it means she has an accident. A fire. Something tragic. But only if she doesn't play ball. The insurance payout alone is worth $8 million. Plus the equity. We can disappear after that." I felt a chill, but my face remained a mask. I looked at Rourke. His jaw was tight. He took the phone from Brittany. "Ms. Voss, I'm going to need to seize this device as evidence." Am I going to jail?" she whispered. "That depends," Rourke said, his voice devoid of sympathy, "on how much more you remember, and whether you testify that Sean O'Connor planned to murder his wife for insurance money." Brittany burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. "I didn't know. I swear. I thought he meant, like, a lawsuit. Not that." I stood up. "Detective, if you're done with her, I have a hearing to get to. Make sure she doesn't leave town." Rourke nodded. "She's not going anywhere. Ms. Voss, you're coming with us. We're going to have a very long conversation about Mr. O'Connor's plans." As we walked out, leaving Brittany sobbing into her Coke, Rourke handed me a copy of the email chain he'd forwarded to his own phone. "That's enough for attempted murder one. Martinez, with the financial fraud, he's never seeing daylight again." "Good," I said, getting back into the cab. "Now, let's go make it official." The courthouse was chaos. Sean was already there, standing with Barry Lipschitz. He was wearing a cheap suit, and his hair was greasy. He looked like he'd been crying. When he saw me, his face twisted in rage. "Elena, you fucking snake," he shouted, starting toward me before a court officer blocked him. "You turned my own girl against me. That's low, even for you." I didn't even look at him. I walked straight to my counsel, a senior partner from my firm named Judith. "Judith, we're ready." The hearing was short. The judge, a stern woman named Carpel, didn't even let Barry finish his opening argument. She'd seen the footage of the lock change, the bank logs, and the email chain Rourke had forwarded. "Mr. Lipschitz, your client engaged in a calculated campaign of intimidation, financial theft, and, as it appears, solicitation of murder for hire," Judge Carpel said, her gavel tapping lightly. "Ms. Martinez is granted exclusive occupancy of the premises at 412 5th Street, effective immediately. Mr. O'Connor, you are to stay at least 500 yards away from the property and your wife. Bail is revoked pending trial. Deputies, take him back to holding." Sean lost it. He started screaming, struggling against the deputies. You can't do this. That's my house. Elena, tell them. Tell them about the box. The money in the box. She's hiding assets. She's the criminal. Judge Carpel banged her gavel. Silence. Mr. O'Connor. One more outburst, and it's contempt. Deputies, remove him. As they dragged him out, Sean's eyes locked onto mine. There was no remorse there, only pure, unadulterated hate. I'll see you in hell. Elena, you hear me? I'll burn it all down, starting with that fucking house. Rourke, who was observing from the back, stepped forward as the courtroom cleared. He just gave us probable cause to search that safe deposit box. Judge, and the arson unit is going to love that last comment. Judge Carpel nodded. Granted. Detective, get a warrant for First National. Box 442. And keep an eye on that brownstone. I walked out of the courtroom, feeling lighter than I had in months. But as I stepped into the hallway, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it. Elena Martinez, a gravelly male voice asked. Speaking. This is Tony DeLuca. You don't know me, but you know my associate, Sean O'Connor. He owes me a lot of money, and he told me your house was collateral. I suggest you unfreeze those accounts and give me what's mine. Or the fire Sean was talking about. It won't be an accident. It'll be personal. The line went dead. I looked at Rourke. He was watching me, his expression grim. Trouble? You could say that, I said, my heart starting to pound for the first time. Sean wasn't just stealing from me. He was borrowing from the mob. And now, they think my house is theirs. Rourke swore under his breath. Well, shit, guess we're not done yet. Tony DeLuca's call wasn't a threat. It was a deadline. I recognized the cadence flat, nasal, Staten Island by way of Palermo. The kind of voice that didn't need to yell, because people usually did what they were told before he finished the sentence. I stood there in the drafty hallway outside the courtroom, the noise of the milling lawyers and clerks fading into a dull hum. Rourke was already pulling out his phone. Who was that? He asked, his thumb hovering over the keypad. Tony DeLuca, I said, the name tasting like copper. Sean borrowed against the house, the brownstone. DeLuca thinks it's his collateral now. Rourke's jaw tightened. He lowered the phone. Son of a bitch. If DeLuca's involved, the arson angle just went from maybe to definitely. Those guys don't wait for foreclosures. He started walking, and I fell into step beside him. We need to move on that safe deposit box now. If DeLuca's sniffing around, whatever sin there isn't just Sean's dirty laundry. It's the connection to the loan. We ducked into a quiet stairwell. Rourke dialed the precinct, his voice low and clipped. Yeah, it's Rourke. I need a judge to sign off on that warrant for First National. Box 442. Now, we've got a potential organized crime tie-in. DeLuca. He listened for a beat, then cursed. No, I don't care if Judge Carpel is at lunch. Find someone and get a unit over to the Park Slope branch. I want that box secured before DeLuca's goons get there. He hung up and looked at me. Your turn. Call your bank. Freeze every account Sean has access to. If DeLuca is expecting a payout, we cut off the supply line. I pulled out my phone and dialed my private banker at Chase. Marcus, it's Elena. I need immediate freezes on all joint accounts and any lines of credit linked to Sean O'Connor. Yes, including the home equity line. Effective now. Send the confirmations to my email. I hung up and looked at Rourke. Done. But it won't stop DeLuca. He'll come for the house directly. Let him try, Rourke said, a hard edge to his voice. We've got Sean on attempted murder, fraud, and now racketeering by association. DeLuca's problem isn't the house. It's that Sean dragged his name into a federal investigation. His phone buzzed. He checked the screen. Warrants signed. Let's go. We drove across town in Rourke's unmarked Crown Vic. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crackle of the police radio. I was running through the implications of DeLuca's involvement, If Sean had used the house as collateral for a mob loan, the deed itself might be compromised. I needed to check the county records, see if there was a lien I didn't know about. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Same burner. Probably. You think you are safe? Tony says hi. Check the basement. I showed it to Rourke. He glanced at it, his face impassive. Basement? At the house? Where else? I said, my gut tightening. Sean's been spending a lot of time there lately. Said he was renovating. I thought back to the faint smell of gasoline Rourke's team had mentioned. He wasn't renovating. He was setting a stage. Rourke keyed the radio. Unit 44. This is Rourke. I need a car at 412 5th Street. Immediate sweep of the basement. Possible accelerants. Be careful. Could be a trap. He looked at me. We're 10 minutes out. We'll swing by the bank first. Grab the box. Then head to your place. At First National, the branch manager, a jittery guy named Henderson, was waiting with 2 uniformed officers. He led us to the vault, his hands shaking as he unlocked the main gate. Box 442 was small, standard issue. Rourke signed the log, and Henderson slid the box out. It was heavier than it looked. We took it to a private room. Rourke popped the lid. Inside, there was no cash, no jewels, just a manila envelope and a small, unlabeled thumb drive. Rourke opened the envelope. It was a stack of papers, deeds, not just for our brownstone, but for 3 other properties in Queens and one in the Bronx, all listed under a shell company, Brooklyn Heights Holdings LLC, and all of them had recent liens filed by a company called Aetna Surety. I recognized the name. It was a front for DeLuca's operation. Son of a bitch. Rourke breathed. He leveraged everything. These aren't just investments. They're collateral for a massive loan. Mignon. He picked up the thumb drive. Let's see what's on this. He plugged it into his laptop. It was a series of video files. Grainy. Surveillance style footage. Sean meeting with a heavy-set man in a tracksuit at a diner, DeLuca. I assumed. More meetings. Cash changing hands. And then, a file labeled Brownstone. Rourke clicked it. The video showed Sean in our basement. He was setting up a series of plastic containers, connecting wires to a digital timer. He was narrating, his voice low and excited. Phase 1, the kitchen. Phase 2, the stairs. The timer's set for 2 a.m. Elena will be asleep. The accelerants pre-mixed. By the time the FDNY arrives, the structure will be compromised. Insurance pays out. DeLuca gets his cut. And I get a fresh start with Brittany. Elena's death will look like a tragic accident. No witnesses. I felt a cold sweat break out on my neck. He'd filmed it. He'd documented his own attempted murder. Rourke was already on the radio. Central. This is Rourke. Confirmed evidence of premeditated arson and solicitation of murder. Suspect se hanno con. Location 412 5th Street. I need the arson unit and a forensic team there yesterday. And put out a bolo on the heavy-set male in the video, Tony DeLuca. We're moving to the location now. As we ran back to the car, my phone rang. It was Sarah from Tribeca. Elena. Thank God. 2 guys just showed up at my building asking for you. Big guys. Suits. No IDs. They said they were collectors. I didn't let them up, but they said if you don't pay Sean's debt, they're going to start with your car, then your office, then they'll visit your mother in Florida. Rage, cold and pure, flooded my system. They were targeting my family. Sarah, lock your doors. Don't open them for anyone but the police. I'm sending Rourke's unit to your place now. And Sarah, call my mom. Tell her not to leave the house until I call back. I hung up and looked at Rourke. They're escalating. DeLuca is not waiting for the house to burn. He's coming for me directly. Rourke floored the accelerator. The siren wailing. He's making a mistake. Threatening a federal witness? That's a death wish. He glanced at me, his eyes hard. You stay behind me when we get to the house. If DeLuca's guys are there, It's gonna get loud. We pulled up to the brownstone. 2 squad cars were already there, lights flashing. Officers were leading a dazed-looking Sean out of the house in cuffs, again. He must have made bail somehow, or the guards let him out. He saw me and started screaming. You did this. You and that fucking cop. DeLuca's going to skin you alive. Elena, you hear me? You're dead. Both of you. Rourke ignored him, pushing past the officers and into the house. The smell of gasoline was stronger now. In the basement, the forensic team was already suiting up. The containers Sean had set up were still there, the timer ticking down. 1 hour 47 minutes and 22 seconds. 1 hour 47 minutes and 21 seconds. One of the techs looked up, his face pale. Detective, we've got a problem. It's not just gasoline. There's diesel mixed in. And the ignition source is rigged to the main electrical panel. If we cut the power, it triggers the spark. If we don't, the timer does it anyway. Rourke swore. Can you disarm it? Maybe. But it'll take time, and we need to evacuate the block. If this thing goes, it'll take out the houses on either side. I looked at the timer. 1 hour 45 minutes and 10 seconds. An hour and 45 minutes. I thought about my neighbors, the young couple next door with their newborn, the elderly widow across the street. I couldn't let this happen. I turned to Rourke. I know how he wired it. He showed me once, said it was a security system. It's a bypass loop. If I can access the main junction box in the garage, I can cut the secondary power without triggering the primary igniter. Rourke stared at me. Are you insane? That's a bomb. Martinez, it's a poorly designed one. I said, my voice steady. He wasn't an engineer. Rourke, he was a salesman. He followed a YouTube tutorial. I can stop it. Rourke hesitated for only a second. Then he nodded. Do it, but you've got 5 minutes. Then I'm dragging you out of there myself. I ran for the garage. The junction box was exactly where I remembered it. I popped the cover, my fingers moving quickly over the wires. Red to blue, yellow to green. I found the bypass loop, a sloppy splice job held together with electrical tape. I took a deep breath, pulled the tape away, and severed the wire with a pair of wire cutters I found on the workbench. Silence. The low hum of the timer stopped. I looked at the display. 1 hour 42 minutes and 18 seconds. Frozen. I walked back into the basement. Rourke was watching me, his hand resting on his holstered gun. The techs were staring, slack-jawed, timers disabled. I said, my voice echoing in the sudden quiet. But the accelerants are still there, and the wiring to the panel is live. You'll need to cut the main breaker from the street. Rourke let out a slow breath. He keyed his radio. All units. This is Rourke. Suspect device disabled. Repeat. Device disabled. Proceed with caution. Cut main power from the grid. He looked at me, a mixture of relief and grudging respect in his eyes. Remind me never to play poker with you. Martinez, you just walked into a death trap and rewired it. He underestimated me, I said, looking at the frozen timer. Again, outside, the wail of more sirens filled the air. Fire trucks, ambulances. The street was filling with flashing lights. Sean was in the back of a patrol car, his face pressed against the glass, screaming silently. Brittany was there too, in handcuffs, being loaded into another car, and standing near a black SUV across the street, watching it all with a cold, expressionless stare, was Tony DeLuca. Our eyes met for a brief second. Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Rourke followed my gaze. He'll be back, but now we've got him on tape. We've got the deeds, the video, the attempted murder. He's not walking away from this. I looked at the brownstone. My home, now a crime scene. Smoke from the disarmed accelerants curled from the basement windows. No, I said, my voice hard. He's not, but neither am I. This house is tainted. I'm selling it, and then I'm going to make sure Sean and everyone connected to him spends the rest of their lives in a cell. Rourke nodded. Good plan. But first, we've got a lot of paperwork to do, and a certain mobster to track down. I looked at the chaos around us, then at the frozen timer in the basement. The war wasn't over, but the tide had just turned. And this time, I was holding all the cards. The paperwork took 7 hours. Rourke made me sit in an interview room at the precinct while the arson guys processed the house and the forensic accountants picked through the safe deposit box contents. I drank truly awful coffee and answered the same questions 12 different ways. By the time the sun came up, I'd signed 3 affidavits and recorded 1 formal statement. My hand cramped, but my resolve was titanium. Around 9 in the morning, Rourke came back into the room. He looked like he'd been chewed up and spit out. He tossed a file onto the scarred wooden table. DeLuca's gone to ground, he said, dropping into the chair opposite me. Vanished. The SUV was a rental. Paid for in cash. The guys who showed up at your friend's place? Ghosts. No prints. No idese. Nothing on the street cams. But we got the house. And we got Sean. Where is he? I asked. Bellevue. Psych hold. He started foaming at the mouth when they processed him last night. Kept screaming about the timer and Tony's gonna kill me. They pumped his stomach. Found traces of Xanax and something else. Maybe Rohypnol. Someone wanted him quiet. I leaned back. Or he wanted us to think someone wanted him quiet. Classic Sean. Manufacture a breakdown to argue diminished capacity. Rourke rubbed his eyes. Could be. But the video from the safe deposit box is solid. The deeds. The liens. We've got enough to charge him with conspiracy to commit murder, arson, grand larceny, and racketeering. The DA is salivating. They're already talking about RICO charges because of the DeLuca connection. My phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Prominent Brooklyn developer Sean O'Connor found dead in holding cell at Bellevue Hospital. Apparent suicide. I showed the screen to Rourke. He didn't react for a full 5 seconds. Then he slowly reached for his own phone and dialed a number. It's Rourke. I just saw the news. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Get me on call at Bellevue. Now. He listened, his jaw getting tighter. No, I don't care if the commissioner is busy. Tell him Rourke said it's a potential homicide. Yeah, I'll hold. He put the phone on mute and looked at me. Too convenient. He was our star witness against DeLuca. Now he's dead. I shook my head. He didn't kill himself. Rourke. Sean's a survivor. He'd rather burn the world than burn alone. This was DeLuca. Cleaning house. Rourke unmuted the phone. Talk to me. How long? And the talk screen? Right. Send me the preliminary report. And get the hospital security footage for the last 12 hours. I want to see everyone who went into that room. He hung up and looked at me. Official cause. Asphyxiation via bedsheet. Unofficial cause. Someone helped him tie the knot. The guard outside his room fell asleep. Convenient. DeLuca's reach is longer than we thought. I said. He got to a hospital guard, which means he can get to anyone, including me. Rourke stood up. Not if I can help it. You're coming with me. We're going to the house. The forensic teams are finishing up. But I want to check something. Sean mentioned a buyer for the house before he clammed up. If DeLuca was the lender, he's also the buyer now. We need to find the paperwork. We drove back to Park Slope. The brownstone was still cordoned off with yellow tape. The smell of gasoline had faded, replaced by the chemical sting of industrial cleaner. Inside, the basement was a disaster zone, scraped floors, cut wires, and a gaping hole where the timer had been mounted. Upstairs, Sean's office had been turned upside down by the forensic accountants. Papers were everywhere. Rourke started flipping through the piles, looking for a bill of sale, a contract, anything with DeLuca's name or Aetna surety. I moved to the built-in bookshelves. Sean was meticulous about his files. Everything had a place. but one section of the shelving looked off. The books were slightly askew. I ran my fingers along the spine of a leather-bound copy of The Art of the Deal. It didn't budge, but the one next to it, a cheap paperback thriller, slid inward with a soft click. A hidden panel in the back of the shelf popped open, revealing a small compartment. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a key. The paper was a purchase agreement. The buyer, Etna Shirty, Incorporated. The seller, Sean O'Connor. The property, 412 5th Street. The price, $1.00. The date, yesterday. Signed by Sean. Witnessed by. I squinted. The signature was a scrawl, but the printed name read Anthony DeLuca Jr. Rourke. I called out, holding up the paper. Found your buyer. He crossed the room in 2 strides and snatched the paper. His eyes widened. Son of a bitch. He sold the house to DeLuca for $1, after leveraging it for millions. That's not just fraud. That's a hostile takeover. DeLuca owns the deed now, on paper, and with Sean dead, there's no one to contest it. I picked up the key. It was smaller than the safe deposit box key, more intricate. There's a key here, too. Rourke examined it. Safety deposit box key. Different bank. Chase. Midtown branch. Box 889. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it on speaker. Elena Martinez. It was that gravelly voice again. Tony DeLuca. DeLuca, I said, my voice steady. I assume you're calling about your new property? He chuckled. A dry, rustling sound. Smart girl. Too smart for your own good. Though, Sean was a fool. But you're a problem. I own the house now. The papers signed. The keys in my pocket. You've got 24 hours to vacate the premises. After that, I send my guys to help you pack. Permanently. You can't just take a house because your puppet signed a fraudulent deed. I said, the courts will throw it out. The courts move slow. Mrs. Martinez, my guys move fast. And by the time a judge figures out the paperwork, the house will be ashes, and you'll be a memory. Consider it a mercy. I could have killed you last night. I'm giving you a head start. Take it. The line went dead. Rourke was already on his radio. Central. This is Rourke. I need an immediate bolo on Anthony DeLuca Jr. Possible homicide connection to Sean O'Connor. And get a unit to the Chase Midtown branch. Private client floor. I need a safety deposit box. Number 889. Secured now. Possible evidence of racketeering and murder for hire. He looked at me, his expression grim. He's escalating. Threatening a federal witness on tape? He's desperate, which makes him twice as dangerous. I looked at the purchase agreement, then at the key. He's not just desperate. Rourke. He's sloppy. He signed the deed himself. Junior. That's his son. And the key. This isn't for a box with deeds. This is for something personal. Something Sean was holding over his head. Rourke's phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked at me. Chase just called. Box 889 was cleaned out an hour ago by a courier service, authorized by Anthony DeLuca Jr. I felt a cold spike of adrenaline. He's covering his tracks, but he forgot one thing. What's that? Sean was recording everything. The thumb drive from the first box had videos of Sean and DeLuca. If there's a second box, it's because Sean had insurance. Something even worse than a real estate scam. Rourke nodded. Then we find it. Before DeLuca does. Or before he decides 24 hours is too generous. I looked around the ruined office. The books. The papers. The hidden panel. Sean had built a fortress of lies. And now, it was crumbling. But the most dangerous secret, the one that got him killed, was still out there. And DeLuca was willing to burn down a city block to keep it buried. Let's go, I said, picking up my briefcase. We're not waiting 24 hours. We're going to find that second box. And then we're going to bury DeLuca so deep, even the rats won't find him. Rourke led the way out, his hand resting on his gun. The street was waking up. oblivious to the war being waged in the brownstone behind us. But I knew the truth. The real battle wasn't about a house. It was about a key, and the secret it unlocked. 24 hours. That's what DeLuca gave me. I spent the first 12 of them in a conference room at my firm on Wall Street, surrounded by white bards and junior associates who looked like they were going to puke. Rourke posted 2 detectives outside the door. The city felt like it was holding its breath. Run it again. I told the kid at the computer, a Harvard grad named David, who was currently sweating through his J. Crew button-down, every frame of the thumb drive from box 442. There has to be a reference to box 889, a name, a date, a location. David scrubbed through the footage. Sean's smug face filled the screen, narrating his little arson plot. Phase 1, the kitchen. Phase 2, the stairs. Skip the fire shit. Rourke grunted from the corner, nursing his 3rd coffee of the morning. Look for the background, the papers on the table, the reflections in the glass. I leaned over David's shoulder. In one clip, Sean was waving a deed around. Behind him, a framed photo on his desk caught the light. It was a picture of Sean and a much younger Tony DeLuca, standing in front of a marina. In the reflection of the glass, I could see a stack of envelopes. One had a return address, street, Finbar's retirement home, Far Rockaway. Stop, I said. Zoom in on the envelopes. David tweaked the image. The handwriting on the envelope was shaky, but legible. Antonio DeLuca Senior. Rourke was behind me now, his breath smelling like stale coffee. DeLuca's old man? I thought he was dead. So did everyone else. I said, my mind racing. Far Rockaway. It's a long shot, but if Sean was blackmailing Junior, it wasn't over the real estate. It was over Senior. DeLuca Senior is supposed to be dead, buried in Greenwood Cemetery for the last 5 years. But what if he's not? Rourke's radio crackled. It was the precinct. Detective Rourke. We've got a hit on the courier service that hit the chase box. Shell Company, registered to an address in Howard Beach. We're rolling a unit now. Tell them to hold. Rourke said, I think we found the source. Martinez, you think Senior is alive? I think Sean found him. And I think Junior has been paying to keep him quiet. Or hidden. Box 889 isn't full of money. Rourke, it's full of proof that the head of the DeLuca family is a ghost. And if the feds find out, Junior loses everything, his crews, his fronts, his entire operation. He's not just a thug, he's a pretender. Rourke looked at me, a slow smile spreading across his tired face. A pretender who just threatened a federal witness to hide a secret that makes his entire empire a house of cards. That's not just racketeering. That's conspiracy against the United States. He got on the radio. Central, this is Rourke. Update the bolo on Anthony DeLuca Jr. Priority 1. Suspect is harboring a fugitive, his father, Antonio DeLuca Senior. Last known location, St. Finbar's retirement home, Far Rockaway. I want a tactical unit there, yesterday, and get a warrant to exhume the grave in Greenwood. Let's see who's really in that box. We drove out to the Rockaways. The retirement home was a squat, ugly brick building near the water. The tactical unit was already there, black-clad figures fanning out around the perimeter. Rourke flashed his badge at a terrified administrator. We're looking for Antonio DeLuca Sr., Rourke said, his voice brooking no argument. Room number? The admin pointed a trembling finger toward a wing on the 2nd floor. Room 212. But he's not supposed to have visitors. Mr. DeLuca Jr., he pays extra for the privacy. We took the stairs. Room 212 was at the end of the hall. 2 tactical officers were already at the door. They nodded at Rourke. He drew his gun. I stood back, my heart hammering against my ribs. Rourke kicked the door open. The room was dim, smelling of antiseptic and old linen. In the bed, hooked up to an oxygen tank and a maze of tubes, was an old man with sunken eyes and a shock of white hair. Antonio de Luca Signor, very much alive, and sitting in a chair next to him, a Glock on his lap, was Tony De Luca Jr. He didn't look surprised to see us. He looked tired, defeated, should have known Sean would rat. Junior said, his gravelly voice quieter now, stripped of its menace. Kid never knew when to keep his mouth shut. Hands where I can see them. Tony, Rourke said, his gun steady. Slowly, Junior placed the Glock on the floor, then raised his hands. It's over, isn't it? Yeah, Rourke said, stepping into the room. It's over. Your old man alive? That's fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and threatening my witness? That's a whole new set of problems. Junior looked at me, his eyes cold. You had to keep digging. Could have taken the money, walked away. But no, you had to be the hero. I'm not a hero. Tony, I said, stepping into the room. I'm a taxpayer, and I don't like my streets being run by ghosts. 2 officers moved in, cuffing Junior and hauling him to his feet. Another medic team rushed in to check on the old man, who just stared at the ceiling, unblinking. As they led Junior past me, he leaned in, his voice a venomous whisper. You think this ends it? You think you've won? I've got friends. Martinez. Friends in places you can't touch. They'll be waiting. Rourke shoved him toward the door. Save it for the jury. Tony, and give my regards to your cellmate. I hear they love real estate moguls in Attica. They took him away. The room felt suddenly empty. Rourke holstered his gun and looked at me. You okay? I'm fine, I said, though my hands were still shaking. Just processing. Processing what? That you just took down the head of one of the 5 families? Rourke snorted. You're something else. Martinez. Most people would have taken the first plane to Tulum. Tulum is for amateurs. I said, I'm moving to San Francisco. Open a new firm. Do some pro bono work. Maybe teach a class at Berkeley Law. Rourke raised an eyebrow. Running away? No, I said, looking around the sterile room. Cleaning house. This city. It's got too many ghosts. I'm done with them. A month later, I was back in the brownstone. It was empty now, stripped of Sean's things. The gasoline smell finally gone, replaced by the scent of fresh paint. I'd sold it to a young couple from Ohio, cash offer. No questions asked. I was packing the last of my own things when there was a knock on the door. I opened it. Rourke was there, holding a bottle of decent Cabernet Sauvignon. He looked different out of his suit, jeans, a Henley, a leather jacket, almost human. Heard you were leaving, he said, holding up the bottle. Figured I'd bring a going-away present and maybe get the real story. I stepped aside, letting him in. The house echoed. We walked to the back garden. It was a rare sunny day in Brooklyn. Real story? I asked, taking the bottle and finding 2 glasses in the otherwise empty kitchen. About the safe deposit box, Rourke said, leaning against the railing. The one Junior cleaned out. What was in it? I poured the wine, the deep red liquid catching the light. Photos, medical records, proof that Senior wasn't just alive, he had dementia. Full-blown. Junior wasn't protecting a criminal empire. He was hiding a senile old man. The boss, everyone feared, was just a drooling patient in a nursing home. The whole thing was a sham. Junior was running the show, but he was terrified that if the truth got out, the other families would tear him apart for weakness. Rourke whistled. So Sean didn't just find a ghost. He found a lie, and Junior killed him to keep that lie buried. Exactly, I said, handing him a glass. But lies have a way of unraveling, especially when you pull the right thread. We clinked glasses. The wine was good, better than the swill Rourke usually drank. DA offered me a job, Rourke said, staring out at the garden. Special investigator for the organized crime task force. Said I had a knack for finding needles in haystacks. You should take it, I said. You're good at it. Better than chasing down domestic disputes in Park Slope. Maybe, he said, Then he looked at me. What about you? San Francisco. You really going to be happy playing it safe? I smiled. A real one this time. I'm not playing it safe, Rourke. I'm playing it smart. I'm taking everything I learned here about Sean, about DeLuca, about how the world really works, and I'm going to use it to build something better, something clean. He nodded, finishing his wine. Fair enough. Just don't be a stranger. If I need a lawyer who isn't afraid of the dark, I know who to call. Likewise, I said, if you need someone to remind you that the monsters aren't always under the bed, well, you've got my number. He set the glass down on the railing and looked at the house one last time. This place treated you like shit, Martinez. It did. I agreed. But it taught me a lesson. Never give someone the keys to your kingdom. And if they try to lock you out, leave quietly. But make sure you take the foundation with you when you go. He laughed. A genuine, warm sound. I'll drink to that. He paused at the door. Good luck, Elena, in San Francisco, or wherever you end up. Thanks, detective, for everything. He nodded and walked out into the sunlight. I watched him go, then turned back to the empty house. I walked through the rooms one last time, my footsteps echoing on the bare floors. I stopped at the front door, the one Sean had locked me out of. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my keys. My new keys. I inserted the one for the deadbolt and turned it. The click was solid. Final. I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me. I didn't look back. I got into the waiting car, the one that would take me to JFK and my flight west. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked at the brownstone in the rearview mirror. It was just a building. Brick and mortar. It didn't define me. It never had. The driver merged onto the highway. I opened my laptop, the screen glowing in the dim light of the back seat. I had a new case waiting for me in California. A tech CEO with a harassment problem. It was going to be a challenge. A good one. I smiled, taking a sip of the Cabernet I'd brought with me. The ghosts of Brooklyn were behind me. Ahead lay the Golden Gate, the Pacific, and a future I'd built with my own two hands. I leaned back, closing my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I felt the quiet, not the quiet of defeat, but the quiet of a storm finally past.